Alright, let's make our way on to the next part of our game where we're going to have things to collect. Okay, so nice and simple, what we're going to do is create a different game object. So I'm going to make a 3D game object. This time I'm going to make a cube. I'm going to position this cube somewhere on my scene, just slightly above the ground. Looks pretty good. Now the cube, as you can see, has a few components here. It's got its position, rotation and scale with its transform component. It's also got a collider. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hook into this as rather than as a collider where you can't move through it, we're going to hook into it as a trigger. And if we just tick is trigger over here, what that allows us to do is to write ourselves a script that will hook into the OnTriggerEnter function. Now I haven't mentioned this before, but I should probably mention it right now. If you go to the scripting reference, you'll find a whole heap of information based around the Unity, all of the Unity code. All of the variables and functions are all there for you to see. So if you click on that help, you will load up the Unity scripting reference, and you should be able to look through and find out the things that you need to find out for each of them. It's important that you set the scripting language so that you don't end up trying to copy and paste code from C# into JavaScript. So I'm going to set it into C#, and I was going to look at the OnTriggerEnter function. So if I type in OnTriggerEnter, we'll see that we have collider OnTriggerEnter. Then we had the collider component that we saw earlier on. It was right here, and we had the OnTriggerEnter function that you saw. So if we see right here, it gives us a description just like all of them, and we see that what we've done is actually we overwrite a function that is a mono behavior function, and it's called OnTriggerEnter, and it takes one parameter, which is a collider, and it passes a variable, it uses a variable within its function. So you see that it passes a collider type variable called other into the function here, and you'll see that we can reference other.gameObject in order to destroy it in this example code. I'm just going to show you that in action right now. If we go back, we've made sure that we've ticked the collider is trigger. We go to here. Oh, that's probably a good idea if I add the code in as well. So we'll make ourselves a new script, and I'm going to call this collectible. I'm going to make a collectible class. Double click collectible because I've already managed to synchronize the project. So you can see right now these are other mono behavior functions as well. The update is a mono behavior function, the start is a mono behavior function. At the moment they're empty, and so is on trigger enter. Okay, so this is just as it was done inside the example. Please make sure you get the case correct for this one, because there is no code completion, because it doesn't know you're going to use it, so it's not going to help you. So it's a capital O, capital T, capital E. The parameter that it must take is a collider, and you can call this whatever you want, but it's a good idea to call it other. It's a useful name for it, because then it'll help you work out what it is. So OnTriggerEnter will get fired when another collider goes through this object's trigger. A little bit of help for myself there by typing that piece of comment in. So just to check that this is working, I'm going to type in debug.log. Ouch. Now debug.log is a very useful way of testing things as you program. Debug.log should put information out to the console when you run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that script is on. I'm going to make sure that is good so I can see the console, and I'm going to hit play. Now what I'll find is as we go through this, you should see a message. Oops, if I did manage to do it. Come up in the console over here, it says ouch. That way I know that that piece of code is actually running. So what do we want to actually do with it? Well, this ball is going to collect this, so what we probably want to do is destroy it. So rather than having debug.log ouch, why don't we destroy this object? So you do this just with the destroy function, and we want to destroy the whole game object. So the easiest thing is to do the small g game object, which destroys this game object. So what you'll find is that this this object, when it is collected, will actually disappear. So I'm just going to hopefully be able to get it a bit easier this time. So you see it actually disappears. That's fairly cool, but we want to be able to keep score as well. This is where we have to put a little bit of thought into it. If we have a score with on this object will be destroyed. So that doesn't help us. We probably want the score to be maybe on the player. But how do we know if the player is definitely the thing that has hit this object? So I'm going to do a little tricky piece of code here. We're going to go to the script that's on the player, and we're going to add ourselves, on the player script, we're going to add ourselves a variable. So we're going to keep score, and I'm going to make this public so we can see it, and I'm going to make it equal 0 just now. Now this, oops, that's an int, sorry about that. It needs to be an integer type, so it's a whole number. So this needs to be on the player because the player will not be destroyed, but when we hit the collectible we will be destroyed, and that's why this is pretty clever, because the collider other will be the object, the collider, that has gone through this trigger. So we can reference other in order to do something with it. So other would be the player, and the player has a script called player on it. And if we write ourselves a function, a method inside this, we can run this other method from another object. Now it's a fairly advanced concept, but it's a good way for objects to communicate with other objects. There's other ways to do it, but this is probably by far one of the easiest because it's an easy option, considering we've been passed the information. So if we go to our player, we have got score. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write a new method. Now writing a method is really cool, it gives you loads more power. In theory everything could be inside update or start or something, but it's far cleaner and far nicer if you're able to do this, if you're able to write methods. So I'm going to take the method. When you write the method, it has its return type first. The return type in this situation is void, so it's not going to need to return any information in this method. And it's called, I'm going to call it collected, and it's not going to take any parameters either. So there is my block of code for my new method called collected. Okay, now it doesn't do anything either, but what we're going to simply do is we're going to access this variable and add one onto it. So score plus plus every time the function, the method collected, has been run. Now I'm going to go to my collectible now. I know that other has gone into this trigger, so I'm going to say other dot send message, and then inside inverted commas the name of the function I want to run on that object, the name of the method I want to run on that object. Now this is by far the cleanest and easiest way to do it. You do need to make sure that you pass this correctly, and once again look it up in the help. Send message, if you wish, you can look it up inside the help file just by typing in the top here whatever it is that you would like. But this will basically take the other object and run this method on it. So there we go, couldn't be easier. We'll compile the code, we'll keep ourselves on player so that we can see that the score variable is listed here. Now keep your eyes down this bottom right hand side. As I move up and through here, we should see that score has gone up to 1. pretty simple. I'm just going to quickly do this because we can, just to prove that this will work. So if we click on cube right now, that is my my collectible. I could rename that one to collectible, and I can make a prefab from it by simply dragging this complete thing. So this is all of its components, including its script. I drag the complete thing into the assets, and it makes it as a prefab. So what that allows me to do is drag out as many of these as I want, and they will all behave in exactly the same way as the last one did. So collecting each of them as I go over them, you should see the score on my player. If I can select my player, here he is. You should see that the score should have gone up every time you collect one of your cubes. Alright, that's that for this one, and then the last one we're going to do a little bit on having the score displayed.